Hello, everyone. It's nice to see you today. I think this is going to be a pretty small group today. I think this might be all of us. So it's going to be a pretty short, small group. Feel free to leave your cameras on if you'd like. Feel free to leave your microphones on if you'd like. If you don't want to, no pressure at all. Just to kind of walk through the game plan for this meeting, I'm going to walk us through our website, just the basic. This is an information session for our equity and access grants. So we're going to go through the basic information about the grant cycle, about what we're looking for, and then I'm going to open the floor up for questions. So it's short, it's sweet, and it's a great chance for you to ask anything directly about the program, about the grant cycle in general, or about kind of more specifics. And you can see we have a small group, so we have time to get into that as well. Any questions about that before we get going? All right, and I forgot to introduce myself, but my name is Angelica Hull, and I'm the Grants Manager at the Community Foundation. So when you go on the Community Foundation website and you see the grant opportunities page, most of those things fall under my purview in some way, shape, or form. You know, I help oversee a lot of our outgoing funding. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. Let's see, here we go. And you can see here I am on the Community Foundation website. When you are looking for grant opportunities with us, you'll come up here under the nonprofit menu and then scroll down to grant opportunities. This walks you through our open opportunities for our fiscal year. So we update this at the beginning of our fiscal year, which for us starts in July. So we run on a July through June year schedule. So you can look for updates on this page coming probably mid next summer with our announcements of what we are offering for next year. And we might know some information on that a little bit sooner too, hopefully, but we are actively changing and growing all the time. So we like to keep this page as current as we can with what we know as we know it. Looking down this grants page, this runs you through our different grant cycles. Before we even get into the cycles, we have some basic eligibility requirements to be a grant recipient from the Community Foundation. These are the same on every grant page. So you'll see them here. And then as you click into each of the grant cycles, you'll see them again. So they're pretty much the same across the board. The first is that your organization needs to be a 501c3 public charity. And that's basically because that is what the IRS requires for us without requiring special expenditure responsibilities on our end. If you are not a 501c3 public charity, but you are a 501c3 in another category, like a private foundation or a private operating foundation, we would need you to reach out to us ahead of time rather than coming through one of these cycles. We'd want to talk first to see if this is something that we'd be able to support. Then the other requirements that we have are that you have a program of impact in at least one of the following counties of Sarasota, Manatee, Charlotte, or DeSoto. Since we are a community foundation, the funds that we put back into the community stay local. So it means that we can't support programs that take place out of our service area with the funds that are under our discretion. Then we identified our community and our service area by those 4 counties. And then the final requirement is that you have an approved or current profile in the Giving Partner, which is a big database that we house that has profiles of a lot of different local nonprofits. It's a great information hub. It's a great resource for our community. And it's an area where we can actually use a lot of the information that you all put into your profiles to, you know, learn more about our community and the services that are being offered there. So we do ask that you have that profile up to date and current, have its current status before you apply for a grant with us. And then we'll scroll down this page. If you have any kind of further general questions, we do have a frequently asked questions section. We typically don't fund capital campaigns through our grant cycles. That's just something that we do internally. And we also don't often offer retroactive funding. If you have more kind of general questions about what we fund or questions about the Giving Partner, you can find some links here that just walk you through some of the basic frequently asked questions. And then we get into our grant cycles. So you can take your time to explore all of these cycles as you'd like to, but today we are here to talk about the Equity and Access Grant Cycle, which is open now. So we can click into this. This will take us to our page that has some more information on the Equity and Access Grant Cycle. And this is something that we launched last year. You know, 2020 was a pretty tumultuous year for the entire world, really, but especially in the US and in our area, it really pointed out to us that it was really important to make this program public and to make sure that you all knew that we were supporting work in this space. And so it's something that we developed and launched kind of in response to what was going on in the world. And it's something that we are very proud of because it shows our commitment to helping populations who face barriers here locally in our community. So you can see here, kind of launch it with this quote from a message from our board, who was our board chair, former board chair, and our president and CEO. And in general, our equity and access grants are grants that fall in the range of $5,000 to $30,000. And they're hoping to promote access to services and kind of a more equitable experience for populations here locally who face systemic barriers. We identify it that way because we want to be able to address a lot of different types of barriers, and we know that there are a lot of populations that face these barriers. So we want to keep it as open-ended as we can, and we want you to bring these projects and and ideas to us so that we can help support them. When we see a funding priority section, the reason that we have priorities is because we are a community foundation. What that means for us is that we are operating and helping to distribute funds from a lot of different funds that were set up by donors that are now housed at the community foundation. When a donor comes to us and sets up those funds, they can give those funds a specific purpose. So they can come to us and say, I would like my money in perpetuity to go to X, Y, and Z. That can be super general. It could be, we trust you. This is unrestricted funding. You can put it where you see fit. Or they can be extremely specific. They can be funds specifically for single mothers, or they can be funds for animals who are pending placement in Sarasota County, but only animals that are domestic animals, not wildlife. They can be as specific or as general as that donor would like them to be. So when we have funding priorities, what we're trying to kind of put on display here is areas where we have funding. That's why we want to make them a priority. They're areas that we think are important, but also areas that we have funds to support. And so it's helpful for us to kind of call them out and put them forward so that you all can read these and see, oh, I might have something that aligns with one of those areas. And I would like to bring that to the Community Foundation's attention. They're not meant to be, they're not meant to exclude anyone. So if your project doesn't fall into this category, it doesn't mean you wouldn't fund it. The reason that we have these kind of priorities here is so that we can help guide you to the areas that we have funding available, if that makes sense. So that's really where we get into these priorities. So when we say health and human services, it means that, we have some funds that are specific to human services or to the healthcare field. So we're looking for projects that have a health or human services tilt to them, as well as other projects that promote equity to specific populations. And these are listed here. So you can see kind of the different populations here. And like I said, some of these populations are listed here because we have funds for them. And another thing that happened this year is that, we offered, in previous years, we had a separate cycle that was specific to the healthcare field and health provisions. This year, we incorporated those funds, the funds that we're going to healthcare, into this cycle. So we're distributing a lot of healthcare and health and human services funds through this grant cycle. So just in case you came from an area that received a healthcare grant in previous years, we're going to go through this cycle this year. The reason for that is that we realized the last couple of years that we were offering these healthcare grants, they were aligning very closely. So we had an equity and access cycle and a healthcare cycle. Most of the things we funded through the healthcare cycle were also based on removing barriers to healthcare. So when we saw that correspondence and we saw kind of what we were funding, we decided to push them together for this year. When we look at eligibility for the grant cycle, like I said, we're looking for projects that range from $5,000 to $30,000. And so the one real thing that's different besides what we already covered is just that you can receive up to $30,000 through this cycle in a 365-day period. That way, because we offer multiple cycles of this program throughout the year, we don't want someone to apply in both just because we have a lot of local nonprofits and we do not have unlimited funding. So we want to make sure that we are also being equitable in the way that we are distributing our funding. And then we get to our apply and review process. You can see here there were 2 cycles of equity and access this year. So one that was open in July and we granted out in October. And then this cycle that's open now. So it was open in early December. You have kind of 2 months to work on an application and get it in. And then it'll close here in the end of January, and we'll go through our review process, and we'll be notifying people about their decisions by beginning of March. On this page, we have an area where you can preview the application. If you want to look at a PDF of the application ahead of time, you can click this button. It shows up what you'll see when you log in. And then when you're ready to apply, you can click the Apply Now button, and that takes you to our online grants module. That's a system that we use to help collect this application information. I know it's another tech loop to jump through, but it's really helpful for us because we can also use it to pull information out of applications. We use it to score the applications, to share them with our review committee, and for our reviewers to be able to see them all. So it's a great system for us, and it's really helpful. So we appreciate you applying through that system. So with that said, I am going to just turn off my share screen just so I can see everybody. And I am going to open the floor for some questions so that we can talk through what specific things you guys came here to discuss today. And feel free to pop in, and you're welcome to turn on your mic if you have questions. You're also welcome to put them in the chat if you're more comfortable that way. No pressure either way. Yes.
I have a question. We're looking at needing some help with fundraising, and you have a program, a smaller program for things like that. How would that affect your ability or your requirement for this kind of a grant program of application?
So that is a great question. And I almost went into that at the end, and then I was like, I don't know if anyone's going to have that question today, so I didn't. But you'll notice on our grants page that we have several cycles that are all open or, open at different times throughout the year. We don't have a universal cap. We don't say you can only apply to one cycle. We don't say you can apply to all of them. It's really what we ask is that you kind of take a look internally and you prioritize your asks. So if your biggest ask is the most important, we would say, go to that cycle first, apply to that first, get an answer from us first, because we want to see what's important to you. We know that you have lots of needs. So if that gets turned down, we would recommend come back and look at a different cycle and then kind of prioritize whatever was second on your list and look at putting that into a different cycle. And I think that really helps us because sometimes people do come in and they apply throughout the board, like across the board, and all of them all within 1 month or something. And that's hard for us because we don't know what you need the most. So I would say, if you're looking at applying to equity and access, but then you also need help with fundraising, if fundraising is a little bit less of a priority, I would say wait till you hear back from the equity and access cycle and then apply for the fundraising software system that you need. The other thing that comes into play, and like I mentioned, we're trying to be cognizant of being as equitable as we can with our funding and the funding that we have available. So while by no means does receiving one type of grant exclude you from receiving another type of grant, it's not that at all. But we do bring the grants that you've received from us recently into the discussion when we decide whether or not to award another grant. So if you did come to us first for something that was smaller and maybe less of a need, and then we are looking at a bigger program or something that's more important to you afterwards, that first grant would come into the conversation. We would say, we did grant this group $10,000 for this, 6 months ago. It doesn't mean that we wouldn't choose to move forward with funding. It just means that comes to the conversation. And the other thing I didn't cover is that, when we have conversations around all of these grants. So for our review process, when we really look at the grants, the way that works on our end is that we have a committee. So we have a committee of community members, staff members, board members, and that committee reads through all of the applications, scores them, and then discusses them. So when you guys submit an application, the reason that we have kind of that month to 6 week turnaround time is that we receive all of the applications. We look through them all. We make sure that they kind of fit the general guidelines. They're all completed, do an initial check through all of them. We look at your profile and the giving partner. We make sure that that's up to date. Assuming that those things all happen, which most of the time they do, we go ahead and we send your application to our committee. All of our committee members review and score your application independently based on a common set of questions. So we have, a set of questions that everybody looks at and everybody scores accordingly as they read through all the applications. And then we have a big meeting. And the meeting is really where the decisions get made. The scores help to provide a framework for, structuring that meeting. But the meeting is really where decisions happen. So while reviewers are reviewing the application independently, they document their questions, things that they'd like to discuss further, things they know, things they don't know. And then we sit down and we have a very long meeting. It's normally like several hours where we go through the applications. We start at the top scoring applications and we work our way down to the lower scoring applications. And we talk through the questions people had, the comments people have made, the concerns, the areas that we were unsure about. This is the stage where we might reach back out if we need clarification in some area. But we really talk through all of them, and then we make funding decisions as a committee together. And then after that happens is when we reach back out to you to let you know of the decision. So it's a big process. It doesn't sound that big on paper, but when you're looking at 20 to 40 applications at a time, it's a big process. And so we take care there. And that's also where when we're having those discussions is where we bring in the comments about other types of funding that we might have already given. That was a very long answer. I apologize for that being like a 5-minute answer to a very straightforward question, but I hope that helped kind of.
Very informative. Thank you. In fact, what leads to one more question. How many grants did you do in cycle 1, just to get a feel for the volume? Did you award, I mean?
Did we award? That's a great question. And I have to be honest, I just got back from maternity leave this week. So numbers are not the first thing in my mind right now. I think it was about 15. Some of those are going to be fully funded and some of those would be partially funded. Sometimes we'll look at an application and we'll say, you requested 30,000. We don't have that much right now that we're able to fund it, but how about 15? Like, does that still work for you? And you'll also see in the budget section on our application, we do have a question that says, do you want to be considered for partial funding? The reason we have that question is we know that sometimes you need all of that money to make that program happen. We aren't trying to put you in a bind. If you need $30,000 for this to happen and we grant you 10 and it can't happen and then you need to scramble to find an extra 20, we don't want to put you in that situation unless you also want to be in that situation. So we do ask that question. And if you opt not to be considered for partial funding, that is absolutely okay. We just want to know because we don't want to force work on you that you don't want to take on to kind of raise that extra money.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
And congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you very much. It's been an exciting time. But yeah, so the exact number is slipping my mind right now, but normally it's in like that 10 to 15 range for a number of grantees.
Well, Angelica, after a few nights of no sleep, you're going to forget more than numbers.
Oh yes, trust me, she is 2 months old now, and so it's been a couple months of not very much sleep. But what other questions are coming up? Okay, well, we have a quiet group today, but if any other questions do come up and if you'd rather address them one-on-one with me, you're more than welcome to shoot me an email, give me a phone call. I'm back now. So it would have been harder to reach me a week ago, but I am here now and I am accessible. So feel free. Emails normally the best. Phone calls right now are being rerouted from, I'm working remotely, so they're being rerouted from my office phone to my phone here. And that just normally is a little bit more complicated, but if you shoot me an email, we can also set up a time to talk where I'm directly available. So you can always shoot me an email, always give me a ring, leave me a message, and I'm available to help with anything that comes up along the way. Also, we did record this session just so we can share it with other nonprofits. A lot of times people will register and then not be able to attend, which we absolutely understand. That does come up. Things do happen. So we record these just so we can share them with other people as they ask. So if you have anyone who wants to see them or anyone else at your organization that would be beneficial to share this with, by all means, it should be up on our YouTube channel and our website here within a couple weeks.
Okay.
All right. Well, if we don't have any other questions, thank you so much for joining today. I appreciate you all. Best of luck with your applications if you decide to move forward. and we look forward to reviewing them next month. All
Thanks,
right.
Angie.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining. Have a great rest of your afternoon.
Mhm.